Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, Mrs. Burns, please.
Mr. Congdon?
Here.
Ms. Boyle?
Here.
Mr. Feather?
Here.
Mrs. Hallenbeck?
Present.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Mr. Parentano?
Present.
Mr. Rudy?
Here.
Mr. Santa?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Present.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Prior to this meeting, the board met in executive session this evening to discuss matters of employment, issues related to labor relations, purchase, sale, lease of real estate property, and potential or current litigation. Any announcements, Mrs. Burns?
No announcements.
All right, we're going to move to the superintendent's report. Mr. Jones, please.
Good evening, everyone. It's a good night. We have a presentation coming up in just a minute, but let me run through some of the superintendent's report just to highlight a few things happening in the district. Our eighth graders have a real neat opportunity. We have pools in 2 of our 3 middle schools, but all 3 middle schools do get to participate at an annual event where we take our students out on Core Creek Park, and that just happened the other day. It wasn't quite as warm as today was, but it was a really nice day, and our students did a phenomenal job. Our PE teachers spoke very positively, not just about what the 8th graders were able to do out there on the water with what they've learned and new paddle boards as well, but also about how well our high school students worked in conjunction, because we had some high school students come down to help support the teachers in the event, and it was just a real good day for Neshaminy and for Neshaminy's phys ed program. I'd like to highlight the fact that Pequesson, as well as many of our schools, but Pequesson School just recently took part in an anti-bullying event where they had, thanks to Children's Hospital, a partnership between the school and the hospital, a 3D interactive program that was presented to the students in grades 6 to 8 at no cost to the district. The principal there said not only were the kids very engaged, but it was good because we got some information out of the program where the students were able to respond and give feedback. So that was good for us and good for them. Maple Point had a few students recognized. Daughters of American Revolution recently recognized 2 Maple Point students at their program in Washington Crossing for winning the annual Daughter of American Revolution History Essay Contest. So congratulations to 5th grader Bailey Tweedy and 7th grader Laura Chorba. They read their essays at that event and were celebrated for their participation. Here at Maple Point also, we had the opportunity to have one of our graduates come back and visit the school and speak to our students. Several social studies classes at Maple Point were treated to a visit from the 2005 Neshaminy High School graduate Andy Laub, who is now a documentary filmmaker. He hiked thousands of miles. He's traveled all around the world capturing stories about our environment and the people he meets along the way, and he too presented a really neat program for our students. So these are the above and beyond stuff that the educators here are providing students real nice opportunities to extend outside and beyond the classroom. At the high school, Neshaminy's Minithon, congratulations to the participants. The students topped their total from last year, raising $16,165 to support pediatric cancer research. The final tally was announced Saturday, May 6th, after an afternoon of competition, dancing, games, all happening in Gym 3 at the high school. So congratulations to the high school students. I do want to reference that this was my first chance to join Neshaminy retirees at an annual event. I don't know how many they had, but there were a lot of retirees that gathered at the Middletown Country Club in Langhorne. A really nice event, a nice opportunity to hear good stories about Neshaminy. And Mr. Stanley, who does our videography work here, he has a nice clip on the retirees portion of our website. If you haven't had a chance, it might be fun to take a look at. There's one teacher there who talks about how she was, at the time that she was here, Neshaminy's only music teacher, all in K to 12. And today we've celebrated our music program many times in terms of how successful we've been. I also point out that Mr. Brown, who is an English language development teacher at the high school, had a really nice story published in the Penn State Abington website, on their website at Penn State Abington campus, about taking our students out to the campus, interacting on the campus, and really accentuating some of the work that he's doing here at Neshaminy with his students by getting them onto that college campus. And I have a link to that as well, or an attachment as part of my report. The board has, just to alert the public, has a couple of charter school resolutions that the Pennsylvania School Board Association is asking for schools to give consideration to passing. There's a recent legislation at the Pennsylvania House related to charter schools. The bill has passed the House. It's working its way to the Senate. And there are things in that bill that are good, but there are other things that educators and school board members at the state level are suggesting that could be done better. And so they're asking for the state to take a second look at that. And there's also another one that has to do about the funding of cyber charter schools. And so those are both on our agenda this evening as well. And I think that's it. So at this point, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Mr. Baffa. Mr. Bob Baffa is one of our curriculum supervisors, and he's going to do the presentation of our annual awards to our teacher leaders.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bob Baffa. I'm curriculum supervisor for English Language Arts, K-12. Myself and Mary Beth Tichy, the supervisor for new initiatives and federal grants, will be presenting, giving out these awards today. This is a great opportunity for us to recognize the teachers who work daily to empower each of Neshaminy students to become a productive citizen and a lifelong learner. And there are 4 categories in which our teachers are going to be receiving awards in tonight. A leadership award, an innovation award, a community partnership award, and a Spirit of Neshaminy award. The Leadership Award is for an educator who fosters and shapes the collaborative culture of their schools, improves student learning and teaching, and influences practice among others. We have 2 recipients for this award. That's Linda Baker and Christopher DeChico. Mrs. Baker works tirelessly to promote research-based, differentiated literacy instruction to students and staff. She's dedicated to promote enthusiasm and love for literacy that extends from the classroom to the home and to the community. Is Linda here? I don't see it. Oh, come on up, Linda. I'm sorry. I thought.
Mr. Baffa, say something about this big piece of paper.
This paper here is a check, a big check for $1,500 that each teacher who receives this award will be able to use that money inside their classroom to support the endeavors that they work with every day and try to move our students in the right direction. Thank you. Thank you. As the Diversity Club Advisor and has established a professional learning community at the high school to promote understanding and tolerance. The Outstanding Teacher Innovative Award is given for advancement and promotion of innovative teaching and pedagogy leading to improved student success. This award goes to Kathy Alford. Mrs. Alford always puts her students first and goes beyond to support them by using data for differentiating instruction and by practicing responsive classroom strategies. Mrs. Alford's approach to teaching is student-centered, inquiry-based, with an emphasis on 21st century skills. Community Partnership Award is awarded to an educator based on volunteerism, service, and civic engagement by collaborating with home, school, and community to reform and improve services for children and families. We have 3 recipients for this award tonight. They are Patty Compton, James Maloney, and Sandy Spong. Mrs. Compton is receiving this award for her participation with the Early Act program, which is committed to service learning projects and that have benefited the Neshaminy community.
Got it.
Mr. Maloney is receiving this award for entering a partnership with Toyota USA. He was provided a vehicle that he used to travel to 26 national parks and 5 state parks.
Great job. Thank you.
Toyota USA also agreed to provide $10,000 to fund projects in his environmental science classes. Mrs. Spong serves as the advisor for Change It Up, which implements extracurricular activities to help those with special needs in our community. She is an example to high school students on how to learn to reach out and learn about children with differences and give back to their community. And the 4th category is for the Spirit of Neshaminy Award. This is for an educator who has touched the lives of a student or students to challenge them to grow and or encourage them to achieve in the classroom and beyond. The recipient of the Spirit of Neshaminy Award is Bill Barnes. Mr. Barnes is often at school early in the morning, meeting with students to plan an event, or after school working with students on a service learning project. He truly inspires those around him to make a difference in the world and in the community. For those of you who have your awards, the boxes are in the back. There's a tag with your name on it, so you can put it back in the box and take it home and put it up on your showcase. Thank you.
Let me just say this, though, too. The concept of leadership, innovation, working with community, the spirit of the school district, they really are key focus points for us. Our school has a real purposeful mission statement. We talk about connecting to the community, we talk about who we are as Neshaminy, and it's nice to be able to pause and recognize a few individuals who really are representative of a whole lot more, right? That these are good people who are doing really good work, and they represent colleagues who are doing equally strong work. And so when they have a selection process to try to decide, well, who's going to stand up here in the front, that's a tough thing to do. And probably there are plenty of people who we even overlook to even be considered in that process. But it really says something, and certainly as a new member of the community, knowing so many of you and all that you do, it's no surprise to see you here today. So we thank you. We thank you for everything that you do individually. We thank you for who you represent here at Neshaminy. And we're just excited that you actually recognize and live and breathe who we need to be and who we are. And we look forward to our relationship continuing for a long time. Thank you so much. This is also the time when kids come to the program that I say, if you need to get home to do homework, and if you have some little ones with you, this is a great time to escape. Unless you really want an education in community and school boards, you're welcome to stay as well. Have a great day. Thank you.
All right, congratulations once again to all those teachers. This time we're going to move on to public comment. We're going to limit to 3 minutes a speaker. Please state your name, area you reside, your profession, and please no personal attacks. Mrs. Burns, please.
Aria Patch. My name is Arla Patch. I live in Doylestown, and I'm a certified Pennsylvania teacher, public school teacher. I'm a member of Doylestown Friends Meeting, and I serve on their Peace and Social Justice Committee. I became aware of the mascot that Neshaminy High School uses because of my work in Maine with tribal nations, and I wanted to come and speak tonight. I moved back to Bucks County, where I grew up, after 30 years in Maine. And during my last 3.5 years in Maine, I served as Community Engagement Coordinator for the first Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the United States for what happened to Native children in the child welfare system. In order to talk about why this Truth Commission came about, I needed to educate myself and my fellow non-Native Mainers about the history that we didn't learn in school. This helped me understand why Native communities are the most socioeconomically distressed by far across this nation. And this is not because of who they are, but because of the history of what happened to them since first contact in every measurable way, physically, emotionally, economically, psychologically, and spiritually. One of the things I learned was that there was a Spencer Phipps Proclamation in 1755, and I gave all of you a copy of that. It was a bounty on the heads of Penobscot people in the New England area, which for practical purposes meant any Native person, because they couldn't tell the difference between a Penobscot or a Micmac or a Maliseet. For a man's scalp, you got 50 pounds. That was a year's salary for clergy at the time. And the part that distressed me the most is that there was also an amount for women and for children, even for children under the age of 12, which was 25 pounds. That meant you could kill a child, a toddler, or an infant. When they would bring the scalps to the station in Augusta, the clerk would ask, "How many redskins have you got for me today?" This meaning of the term redskins is one of the reasons why, to me, it is unconscionable to be used as a mascot for children in school. Bounties were prevalent all across this country in our history. I've also studied why white Euro-Americans in particular seem to appropriate Native tribal names and slurs to tell ourselves that we are honoring them. Every one of us, except the indigenous people of this land, have lost our ancestral territories. Unlike Native peoples, we have not been on this land for thousands and thousands of years. We've been severed from where our people have had continuous contact forever back in time. And some of us are so mixed in our European heritage, we don't even have a sense of our ancestral territory, something I suspect we long for. I know I do. I believe that can create a craving and an identification with the strongest presence of tribal belonging that we're exposed to, the Native American community.
Arla, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes has expired. We have a second board comment. You'd be welcome to come up and speak for another 3 minutes if you'd like. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry.
Lynn Azarchi?
Good try. So I apologize, this is a big school board and I did not bring enough copies, but you guys will have to share. So it's 2 minutes? Three. Oh, it goes fast. Press this button? Okay, sorry. Hi. Good evening. So my name is Lynn Azarchi. I'm Executive Director of the Kids Bridge Tolerance Center, 20 minutes as the crow flies. We educate 2,500 children a year, elementary and middle schoolers, in tolerance, diversity, appreciation, bullying prevention. Arla and I are working on a program to do Native American history in New Jersey. I learned of your continued use of a mascot, and I wanted to share some research with you that I learned about 5 years ago. Exposure to Native American team mascots causes stereotyping of other ethnic groups. A study in 2010 led by Kim Prieto, assistant professor of psychology at the College of New Jersey, and we're associated with them, supports the conclusion that Native American stereotypes do have a negative impact on viewers. More specifically, the research suggests that one stereotype enhances another stereotype regardless of the race. The professor hypothesized that such symbols could subconsciously instigate stereotypical thoughts in the minds of viewers. She launched 2 studies, College of New Jersey and one at her alma mater. In her study, she tested if observing and reading about the Native American sports symbol would increase prejudices about Asian Americans and other groups. Her research concluded that the students who saw a Native American chief reacted more positively to the negative Asian American stereotypes, meaning that the respondents seeing the depiction of a Native American chief agreed with the stereotypes about Asians. The research seems to have prompted the students, predominantly white, to react negatively toward another race. The study suggests something deep about racial consciousness, and the professor hopes it will be used to elevate public conversation. She quotes, "I hope that people will be informed by research-based studies when they engage in thoughtful conversations about the effects of various cultural symbols." So I present this to you. We make decisions based on sometimes instincts and our thoughts, but this is research. And I ask you, with all the good programs you're doing for your children, to consider that one stereotype, as you communicate that's okay to your children and your students, tells them that other stereotypes are okay. And I'll be here after for questions. Thank you.
Joan Mulligan?
I'll try to make this quick. I didn't know there was a 3-minute time limit. Hello? Okay. My name's John Mulligan. Tonight, I come to your school to offer you an alternative point of view and plead with all of you to end your highly offensive mascot and image of a
Excuse me, are you a resident in the district?
Excuse me?
Are you a resident in the district?
I live in Percy.
Scott, can we please file protocol? I understand their message, but agenda items first, and then is there anybody on the agenda? And only residents are supposed to have access to the microphone. During the first period.
No, I stopped your time. You're at 2 minutes and 49 seconds left. So at this time, I'm just going to let him continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Your highly offensive mascot and image of indigenous first person. I do not come to speak for the First Peoples, but rather for myself, Spanish, Italian, Scottish immigrant whose distant family came to this land to seek a better life. I'm an electrician by trade and a volunteer instructor of First Peoples Living Skills at Peace Valley Nature Center. For over 20 years, I've studied America's First Peoples Living Skills and life ways. I spent 8 years traveling the country learning these skills from top instructors and wisdom keepers. Long ago, on this very land, intelligent, secure, highly religious people occupied this land for 10,000 years. Their ancestors' lineage reached back to the time of when woolly mammoth roamed this land and provided life for those people. They knew every rock outcropping, cave, hillside, and the relationship with the plants, rocks, and trees gave them life. They gave thanks and blessing to the fish, birds, four-legged creatures for whom fed them and gave them clothes. They knew every spring that nourished their thirst. They were the land, and the land was their existence. They knew where the hard brown stone called jasper could be found and traded it from here to Maine out to the Mississippi Valley. They were known as the Lenni Lenape, the old ones. The Lenape, known by their grandfathers, were known as the grandfathers for tribes all around them who came after them as humble people. I'm sorry, I'm a little... They had songs, customs, dance, and dress, which is not reflected in your school's mascot. The traditions of the Lenape people reach back thousands of years, yet I can barely see back to mine over 100. The name Neshaminy loosely means a place where we drink twice. It is the name of a village where Chief Tammany lived and was located in Chalfont, where the north and west branch of the creek merge. Your school is located closer to the Lenape town of Playwicky, not Neshaminy. The Hollywood image of your racist mascot depicts the Plains warrior wearing a bonnet of eagle feathers and shooting a reflex bow. This bow and bonnet would have been completely alien to the Lenape people you claim to honor. The Lenape shot long bows made of hickory or ash and never knew a bonnet of war feathers. Until us, the invaders, came and we traded for, then fought for, and finally pushed the Lenape from their vast forested east to the sun-baked, windswept prairie of the west, where the Lenape probably encountered their first war bonnet.
John, thank you very much. And once again, if you'd like to finish, we have a second session.
Ruth Logan.
Hi, I'm Ruth Logan, and my first school district was Neshaminy. I guess I'd jump back and say I'm a manager at Johnson & Johnson. I'm a founder of an organization called Arrows for American Indians. And I used to go to the football games at Neshaminy. My father moved from Middletown, Ohio to Middletown Township, right out here. And he went to college at Miami, so did I, Miami Redskins of Ohio. So we had the Neshaminy Redskins and we had the Miami Redskins. And I got involved in the activism and learned about Native history, and I have Cherokee in my bloodline, which I didn't even know about. I thought our mascots were beautiful, and I loved the headdresses the Miami Redskin wore, and I was naive. I had to have explained to me why that was offensive to the Native people, because it was warlike is one of the reasons. And then I learned about what Redskins mean. It means bloody scalp. And they always knew this, I didn't. And once I knew it, I couldn't support the use of the term anymore. So I'm coming here as an alumni to tell you many years later, I think it's time maybe. Miami Redskins, they changed it to the Red Hawks, and they had shirts saying goofy but get used to it, and we got used to it. And I love the red-tailed hawk. It's indigenous of Pennsylvania. Why not the Neshaminy red-tails? It's a beautiful, strong bird, and it's a bird the natives revere. So I'm just coming to let you know my opinion on it, and my father, David C. Tickle, he's a 83-year-old elder who shares my opinion. And he actually met the Miami chief to talk to him about his opinion on the Miami Redskins. And the Miami Chiefs said the old-timers didn't really mind, but the young people do. And they're becoming assertive, and that's good because they seem to be the last respected in this country. They were here first. They deserve more respect and consideration. That's all I have.
Donna Boyle.
It's already on? Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm Donna Boyle, a community member of Neshaminy. My kids both went to Neshaminy School District. The youngest one graduated in 2017. You all know that I've been working on the mascot issue for years now, and when I first started, it was with Richie Webb was the president, and we had a pretty good rapport, but then later I found out that he pretty much was leading me on and lying to me, because then when it came time for him to retire, he made a speech regarding what I was doing and pretty much tried to make a fool out of me. So I learned that I should not always believe what I hear or what's told to me, and that's why I was pushed into filing the complaint with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, because I was being led around. I wasn't being told the truth. So there's a lot of people that are supporting change, and in fact, I've given you guys, tons of information, but there's 18 pages here of supporters of change. And it says more than 30 national Native American organizations across the country have spoken out against the use of the racist R word as the Washington, D.C. National Football League's team's mascot, including the National Congress of American Indians, the oldest, largest, most representative American Indian and Alaska Native organization, representing about 70% of Native Americans, nearly 800,000 people living on reservations, in addition to United South and Eastern Tribes, an intertribal organization with 26 federally recognized tribal nations representing over 65,000 Native Americans, and over 40 individual tribal governments and leaders have passed resolutions or issued statements condemning the use of the racist term, and just being appropriated, natives being used as mascots. So there's, lists of tribes and resolutions that tribal councils have made. There's elected officials who have spoken out and support change. There are legislation that's being drafted to, about there's a couple in particular that ban the use of the term redskin because it is a derogatory racist term. And, this affects our children. We have a high rate of suicide, and we have a high rate of drug abuse. And it has to do with how our children look at themselves because of the way the outside world perceives them. And I think for a school board to perpetuate the use of a racial slur, knowing that it's your responsibility to protect all of our children. You represent all of our children. And I know the majority of the children here are non-native, and they have fun at the expense of our children. But think how we feel when our children are feeling bad about themselves or questioning their beliefs because they're being made fun of. You don't look at it as being made fun of. You look at it as honor, but it's not honor to Native people. And I know some of you have laughed at me about that and actually.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Steve Rodas.
Yeah, I remember that part. Good evening. I'm Steve Rodas. I live in the Villages of Flowers Mill in Langhorne. I really didn't know people that spoke before me, although I have spoken about this issue at previous board meetings a few years ago. And really, in my opinion, it gets down to a very simple thing. It's time for Neshaminy to change. That's it. It's as simple as that. You're wasting a lot of money on attorneys' appeals and everything else. And it's the right thing to do would be to change the mascot. So I just want to thank you all for a wonderful award presentation this evening, and it was richly deserved by the recipients. And it's great that these teachers are recognized for their achievements in the district. And I come to a lot of school board meetings, and this is the first time I've seen this presentation. And I think it's great that it's occurring at the meeting, can get out into the newspapers, get out on television. And, you know, the fact that you're honoring the people who are actually on the front lines of education, I think is a great advancement. And I'd like to see this all the time, more education awards. You know, it's not everybody that plays football, but everybody's got to get through high school and try to get further than their parents got in this world. So anyhow, I want to talk about two items that are actually on the agenda. One is I noticed that there is a motion to enter into a retainer agreement with the law firm to in the amount of $26,500, which, you know, the amount of it is up to you. But I don't see any reconciliation of this amount with commensurate with the work they may or may not put in the agreement. It didn't just said we're going to pay this amount the way we'd like, either monthly, semi-annually. But it didn't require them to back it up with any proof that they did anything other than sent you the first bill for $26,500. So I think that, you know, you should take care of that. Charter schools, definitely in favor of these motions on charter schools. I think that they're a gigantic waste of money for the school districts, and in particular, these cyber charter schools, which I think the best one in the state of Pennsylvania gets a grade of 59. I mean, if the high school came in, hey, we're doing great this year, we got 59. The state said we're 59, where we used to be a 90. It's a waste of money, and they're ripping off everybody. The kids are going, the parents, the taxpayers. It's a disgrace. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for public comment. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes, treasurer's report, check register, investments, and exonerations. Can I get a second, please? Second. Mr. Sullivan, any questions, comments, or concerns? Be it there none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I believe items 2.01 through 2.05 passes 9-0. Mr. Parentano, on the personnel for administrative, please.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Be it resolved that the Neshaminy School Board of Directors hereby approves the revised request for leave for Kelly Gerber, Acting Assistant Principal, Pequessing Middle School, be effective May 1st, 2017 through the end of her temporary assignment, June 30th, 2017.
Thank you for that motion. Can I get a second, please? Ms. Hollenbach with a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Be it there none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 9-0. Personnel certified. I'd like to make a motion to approve items 4.01, retirements and resignations, leaves of absences, return from leave, co-curricular appointments, and ancillary appointments. Can I get a second, please? Mr. Feather, I believe that was. Thank you for the second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Be it there none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Opposed? No. Abstentions? I believe items 4.01 through 4.05 passes 9-0. Personnel support, Ms. Hollenbach, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve items 5.01 through 5.07, retirements and resignations, leave of absence, return from leave, appointments, co-curricular resignations, co-curricular appointments, and ancillary appointments.
Thank you for that motion. Can I get a second, please? Mr. Parentano with a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Be it there none. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions. Items 5.01 through 5.07 pass 9-0. Educational development, Ms. Boyle, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 6.01, which is overnight trips.
Thank you for that motion. Can I get a second, please? Mr. Sullivan with a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Just real quick, for some reason, my document won't open.
We made sure it
Yeah,
worked
I
that
can
way.
see that. I just want to. There it goes. Okay. It did. I'm sorry. It did open. I just missed it. All right. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Be it there none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Overnight trips passes 9-0. Business operations, Ms. Hollenbeck, please.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 7.01, appointment of management trustee to the Bucks and Montgomery County School Healthcare Consortium. Item 7.02, the annual appointments for 2017-18. Item 7.03, the appointment of auditor. 7.04, memorandums of understanding with Middletown Township Police and Lower Southampton Township Police. 7.05, the appointment of treasurer. 7.06, the appointment of board secretary and assistant board secretary. 7.07, Sunday facility usage. 7.08, contracted services. 7.09, the addendum to source for teachers contracts. 7.10, the acceptance of donations. 7.11, Bucks County Technical High School budget for 2017-18. 7.12, the transfer of entity. 7.13, the Bucks County Intermediate Unit Number 22, Special Education Contracted Services for 2017-18. 7.14, Charter Schools, and 7.15, the 2017-18 proposed final budget.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Mr. Santa, thank you for the second. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns on items 7.01 through 7.15?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to remove 7.04 and vote on that independent.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right.
I would also like to pull out 7.11.
Well, we have to vote on that first. All in favor? Opposed? But we're voting on your motion. Okay. All in favor, we all said aye. Opposed? Well, abstentions. We finished. Might as well finish it. It's on the table. All right. And if we don't have to be specific about this, does anybody else have anything else they want to pull out?
I want to pull out a 7.11, 7.13,
Oh, boy.
7.14, 7.15, and 7.16.
7.16 wasn't in it.
I'm sorry. It will.
1.3, 1.4, and 1.5? All right. No, we're not reading them all separately. All right. 1.
11, 13, 14, 15.
And it was 7.04 for you there, Mr. Feather? All right. So the motion on the table right now is going to be amended to 7.01, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 only. All right. Can I get a second for that, please? Mr. Sullivan, any questions, comments, or concerns? Be it there none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Items 7.01, 7.02, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 are approved 9-0. At this time, we're going to move to 7.04.
Was 12 included or not included in that? I'm sorry.
12 was not included.
You pulled that out too?
No.
12 was not included.
We didn't approve that, but you didn't list 12.
All right,
Now we have to
we'll
do
do
it
it separately.
Now we have to.
Would like a motion to, have a separate vote on the charter school, 714.
It already
So
is.
we have it at? Okay.
Oy vey.
I think you're ready, 7-4.
7.04 memorandum. I'm just going to stick with this. I mean, to get through this, memorandums of understanding with Lower Middletown Township Police and Lower Southampton Township Police Departments. Can I get a second for 7.04, please?
Second.
Mr. Parentano, any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yes, my question to you is to you, Mr. Condon. We must have had either a grave misunderstanding at the last meeting in reference to your statement that police chief has nothing to do with the school district. Do you have any corrections in reference to your statement that you made at that meeting or last school board meeting? Because of your statement, I have some issues with why we're even voting on it if the police department has nothing to do with our school.
Voting on what, Mr. Morris?
Memorandum of understanding between the two police chiefs.
Okay. Do you know what that memorandum of understanding is? Have you read it?
Have you read it, sir? I'm just asking you a simple question.
Right. No,
My question to you, sir, was, can you clarify what you meant that the police chief has nothing to do with its school district? And that's
clarifying
really
what I meant at the time, it was a different discussion, and I'd have to go back and see what was said on both sides to lead up to that point. So no,
Okay.
I have no comment on that.
Okay. Because my statement was I was congratulating the lieutenant, Ted Kimmel, being appointed as the police chief and giving praise to the Lower Southampton Township supervisors for doing the right thing finally. And that's where the debate came in, and it was shut down. And it was also cut off at some of the replays, but that's handled now. I just wanted a clarification for the public that was here, what you meant by that, so there's no confusion. I mean,
Like I said, I'd have to see the conversation again to see what led up to that point for that statement, and I'd have to see
Okay.
that statement.
just for clarification for me then, because I have to vote on this. Do you believe the police chiefs in our district have something to do with the Neshaminy School District?
Most definitely,
Okay.
they have connections with our districts in many different ways.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. That was the answer I'm looking for.
Just for the public's edification, these documents are to keep the school district in accordance with Pennsylvania State Code 10.11. And we have very good working relationships with our individual departments, and we're glad for the support they can offer us, and we should be grateful that we have good people working for us.
All right, any other questions, comments, or concerns on item 7.04?
I do. I did read them, and I noticed that in there's nothing mentioned about contacting parents when any incident does occur.
That's a standard document that the state has all schools enter into with their local police, the local chiefs of the police departments that serve where you have school buildings located. So that's not our document, and we have that practice where we're contacting parents. That's just a school practice in terms of when we have involvement with students and the like with any incident, certainly anything that would arise to the level of police involvement.
I would like to just add a few things on this. We get sworn in to hold up the Constitution and things like this. And it's a real gray area, and I've said it before in other board meetings in the past. It's in reference to your constitutional right for search and seizure. And, what I find in the past in some school districts, and including ours, is the probable cause comes from an illegal search at the beginning. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a constitutionalist lawyer or anything like this, but I do find it very concerning that if a parent loans a vehicle to the child to drive to school, that is also a search and seizure that can be done without the owner knowing it, without a warrant and a probable cause from the police department. Now, obviously, I'm all for law enforcement, but you know the dilemma between educational law and state law and the Constitution and the constitutionality of the whole thing. But I have seen it abused at times in our district and other districts. My concern is when you're searching through phones, you're searching through all this information when a parent doesn't have to be told. And the police department can come in without any issue to the probable cause, because your probable cause is from us, the school district, and do another search and seizure. If it's narcotics, a felony, anything like that, I don't have a problem with it. But it's the privacy invasion that I've experienced and seen, not personally experienced. That's my concern.
Mike, just to add one thing to that, you know, my child was, both my child drove at the high school. When driving and parking at the high school is a privilege, not a right. And we have to sign a document, the parents have to sign a document to allow them that privilege that states that if there's suspicion that the car can be searched. So while I understand the premise of your question, when it comes to the car, if it's a privileged right, then it's a privilege, excuse me, not a right. So some of those things are different. In other areas, maybe not, but in the area when it comes to the automobile on school property, you sign that document as a parent for that privilege then the park.
Fully understand, read it, have signed it myself. It's just that, you know, my concerns are the constitutional part of that. We have an outside contractor, it's not law enforcement, that's doing our drug sniffing and things like that. And I question the well-trained drug sniffing dogs, as long as with the operator of that dog. I mean, it takes a lot of money to train these dogs. And personally, if my son can be searched, I believe all of us could be searched, and I don't have a problem with that either. But I'm just saying, I think, you know, we have to, you know, look at the state constitutional law along with everything else. But I do understand it's a privilege to drive. It's even more of a privilege to drive on our premises. But not that I agree with somebody questioning what, you know, is in my vehicle and going rifling through my paperwork because for something else. But I am not sitting here trying to hide anything. It's just the all constitutional issue for me. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns on items 7.04, which has been first and seconded by Mr. Parentano? Be it there none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Opposed. Roll call, please.
Ms. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Congdon?
Yes.
Mr. Feather?
No.
Mrs. Hollenbeck?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
No.
Mr. Parentano?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Santa?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan? Yes. 7 yes, 2 no.
Thank you. I'm going to go back a page here. All right, item number 7.11, Bucks County Technical High School budget for 2017-2018. I'd like to make a motion to approve that. Can I get a second, please? Mr. Reedy with a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Are we still at the same amount of savings that we talked about last meeting? So it's the same. Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 9-0. So we're doing 712, transfer of entity. I'd like to make the motion. Can I get a second, please? Second. Mr. Rudy, thank you for the second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Be it there none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 9-0. Item 7.13, Bucks County Intermediate Unit, number 22, Special Education Contracted Services for 2017-2018. Can I get a second on that, please? Mr. Sullivan, thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yes, Mr. Condon. I would like to know if Mr. Jones could explain where we are as far as tracking on these total amount from last year.
This number's down $4 million from last year, but some of that is as a result of the item that was right above 7.2, which is a transfer of entity. And so we'll be assuming some of the costs associated with programs. There's still a dollar savings in the tune of $1.2 million for programs we're bringing back. But some of that savings from $10 to $6 million, and those are rough numbers, also relates to some curtailing of the necessary services for next upcoming school year as well. So there's a combination of factors affecting that.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I just wanted to make sure we're, tracking these, and we appreciate all the hard work you and the business office and Mr. Devlin's office has done to analyze what we could do better in-house for our students than sourcing outside for these services. I'm glad to see that we were able to facilitate this, and hopefully it benefits our students. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Be it there none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 9-0. 7.14, resolve that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the attached resolution opposing charter school provisions under House Bill 97. Resolve that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the attached resolution calling for reform of funding for cyber charter schools. Can I get a second, please? Second. Mr. Feather with a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
If possible, could we also get Mr. Jones to give a brief explanation to the public on this?
House Bill 97 is recently passed by the Pennsylvania House. It's addressing charter school reform. While many people recognize the need for reform, and Pennsylvania School Board Association also concurs that there's a need for reform, this particular bill is something that in some ways does too much and in other ways does too little. And so the new Charter Commission for review, there's a belief on the part of the School Board Association at the state level that that's too expansive in its form that's present in this bill here, that it gives too much latitude also to charter schools to expand once approved within the territory without going back for additional approvals, that it expands the time frame for charter schools in terms of their approval from what's currently 3 to 5 upwards to 10 years for charters. And so there is some aspects that are positive, but there's enough concern and enough areas that are overlooked that the recommendation is that for schools should ask for the legislators to do better or to do more focused work simply on the finance aspect, because that's really a driving concern. The second one is really related to a real clear issue associated with cyber charter schools and the funding of charters here in Pennsylvania. The fact that the cyber schools exist creates an interesting issue where we are sending the same dollar amount to the student who attends a cyber charter school as we do for someone who's attending a brick and mortar school. And there's a belief across the state in many of the public school systems that doesn't make a lot of sense, that there's probably a different figure, a different number that should be associated with somebody attending a cyber school as opposed to the full-time brick and mortar school. And so that one's targeted more towards the cyber school.
Currently, we spend about $2 million on charter schools, including cyber charter. One of the speakers, Mr. Rodas, was at the podium, was addressing his concern over cyber charter schools and stated some information about results. While the need may be different for each individual student, the data that I've seen from the district, there's not one cyber school that currently is being used by district students that is even close to garnering the results that we're seeing in our individual schools. Is that still true?
I don't have that data right in front of me, but my guess would be that that is very true. The cyber school performance across the state has been very poor across the board. You know, one of the things in our new strategic plan is for us to be providing students better academic choice options, and so this is an area where we feel like we can do more ourselves as an Neshaminy school district to offer when parents and students are looking for those kinds of options, to get more of that opportunity out through our own mechanism, through our own school system here. And so that's an avenue we'll be pursuing as well.
Just to comment on that, Mr. Paratano, I don't think it would be fair to judge a student in charter school doing cyber side to if they're having a problem, you know, in a classroom setting. So the controlled side of that, you can look at the numbers, however, how much worse it would be if that child was in a classroom. Though I do understand, you know, the charter school side and how much they can siphon through the system without brick and mortar and classroom settings. And yeah, I believe we do have to address that at the state level. But it's kind of the way I look at it is if a student is having issues or wants that choice or the parent wants that choice, there must be a reason for it. That school district, be it from wherever it is, may want that just to make the child learn better or educate that child more well-rounded, whatever environment.
Okay, there is nobody else hitting their buttons here. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions. Item 714, charter schools, the two resolves. Passes 9-0. Ms. Hollenbach, please, item 715.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 7.15, the 2017-18 proposed final budget.
Thank you. Can I get a second, please? Second. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Be it there none.
I'd like to have a explanation for the public of where we're currently at with the budget and what we're proposing. And with the clarification, this is the proposed final budget. It is not the final budget.
Right now, for the proposed final budget, the general fund expenditures, including federal programs grants, are $180,278,834. Our revenues are $175,915,526. We have our excess of expenditures over revenues is $4.3 million. So that's where we stand right now.
And we're currently still allowing $2 million from the PESERS fund to cover the increased PESERS costs for this year?
Yes, so it'll bring down what we would take from unassigned fund balance to $2.3 million.
This year, Mr. Jones and Barbara's staff, as well as the rest of the school district staff, has had to deal with a $4.5 million increase in contracted items being PESERS, pension, a couple other items that were non-negotiable. That is an increase that had to be dealt with. To whittle it down to where we are is very good work. I'm not saying we can't do better, but I'm hoping we can still make some progress before the end. And I just want to know that at least this board member, I'm sure the other board members appreciate the amount of work that you've put into it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Be it there none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions. Proposed final budget passes 9-0. Item 716, please, Ms. Hollenbach.
Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the attached resolution issuing Mast Neshaminy Charter School a 3-year charter effective for the 2017-18 school year and authorizes the board president and the board secretary to sign sign the charter also attached.
Can I get a second, please? Mr. Morris, any questions, comments, or concerns?
I'd just like to make it known that we are being forced to do this. This is not something that we wanted.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And there are specific conditions contained within the motion.
That is correct. Be it there no more comments. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Item 716 passes 9-0. All right, moving right along. Is there any other board business, Mr. Jones? Anyone at the table would like to bring up at this point? Not at this time. Anyone else? I have nothing. Nothing, Mr. Murphy. Thank you. All right, we're going to move to our second portion of public comment. Once again, it's going to be 3 minutes. Please state your name, area you reside, your profession, and please no personal attacks. And there's no list for this, so you can just approach the podium.
My name is Arla Patch. I live in Doylestown, and I'm a certified Pennsylvania public school teacher. I just wanted to say that in Maine, the last high school to let go of the name Redskins was Sanford High School in 2005. And what brought that about was tribal members from northern Maine, which is where most of the tribes are located, coming and explaining the impact of being considered a mascot on their lives. You can't have an even playing field or anything close to equality when one group of people get to be the human beings and the other group are merely the stereotyped mascots. 50 years before Columbus even sailed to this hemisphere, the Pope made proclamations. These were called the Doctrines of Discovery. And basically what they said was that if you land on a foreign land and the people are not Christian, then you have a right to put them in perpetual slavery, take all their possessions, and essentially think of them as nothing more than the moose and the deer. This conqueror mentality is nothing more. This conqueror mentality, we took their land, we took their lives, we took their resources, and now we're still taking. We're taking their identities, and we're telling them what that identity means. I just really urge this school district to consider transforming their mascot into something that all people could be proud of and all students could stand behind and not be racist.
Thank you.
So, the state reward for dead Indians has been...
I'm sorry, can you state your name? Go through the...
Oh, okay.
I didn't start your time yet.
Okay, you didn't start. Okay, Donna Boyle, Langhorne. I live in Langhorne, and my kids both went to Neshaminy. So the state reward for dead Indians has been increased to $200 for every Redskin sent to purgatory. And that was in the Winona Daily Republican newspaper in 1863. So, from way back when, the term Redskin has been considered a derogatory, degrading term, and it's been used in that way. And so for a bunch of non-natives or Europeans to take that term and then say that it's a term of honor is totally wrong. There's been a lot of activity on this issue. I mean, there was even a play recently. It's called Indian Head. There's lots of organizations that are we have the Not Your Mascot organization, which puts out a publication. And in their publication, it says that this was the time that the Nazis marched to keep the Redskins white. This was in 1961. This was after you guys took this mascot in 1961. The Nazis marched because they wanted the Redskin football team to stay white. They didn't want black players on the team. So you see, there's a lot of racism around this. And, this perpetuates you allowing this perpetuates some bad behaviors. This was at This is at homecoming. This is at homecoming. A full headdress. Okay, you honor Lenape people apparently, but they didn't wear a full headdress. And this is a girl wearing a religious thing, a very honored item, a girl wearing this, a young girl. And I actually messaged the principal, McGee, about this, and he never got back to me about it. But he did do something for me when I took a lot of concerns to him about my son being, in school there in his senior year and having to have a yearbook that comes into our home with that term on it, and there's pictures and there's images. He came up with a solution, but I thought it was a solution that was going to pertain to everybody. But the solution was for him to have my son's yearbook. He had a little piece of tape put over the word Redskin on my son's yearbook, not for everybody, just my son got a special yearbook. We're special. We're the minority. Okay, that wasn't bad. It's not bad enough being the Native minority. Now we're the minority who gets special attention, like a special yearbook. And then they have the Mr. Redskins contest, which makes us real comfortable. Thank God my son's out of school now, so he doesn't have to deal with that crap anymore. Pennsylvania just came up with an equity and inclusion toolkit, which goes hand in hand with your policy 547 that you're not upholding or abiding by. And it states that everyone is to be treated equally.
Thank you.
Susie Drake, Pendle, Neshaminy High School teacher, alumni, class of '85. I've spoken on this topic before. I'll speak on it again. I'm speaking from a personal perspective and that of a high school teacher. I did not think there was anything wrong with our mascot when I was a student. It was through education and teaching my students that I began to question why we have a mascot that denigrates a population of our student body. I have 8 nationalities in my classroom. I tell my students they are not to use racial epithets against the Muslim American students, against the Russian American students, against the African American students. Yet we are allowed to proclaim racial epithets on our billboard that was put in front of our school since this topic has been addressed time and time again. Our student newspaper, The Courageous Kids, from 15 years ago, from 5 years ago, have gone on to wonderful careers speaking on this topic and asking for discussion, not saying you need to do it our way, saying let's, as someone so eloquently said, engage in thoughtful conversation. That has been shut down by this board and by previous boards. Personally, as a taxpayer, I don't think it's ever appropriate for half-naked students to be running around school property. Yet we allow half-naked students in the front of the student section wearing a racial epithet on their bodies every football game. It is offensive to me. The only reason I go to the games anymore is to see the marching band, to support my kids, and to support my student activities. But I do not go anywhere near the stands because it's offensive. Our students deserve better. We should be modeling the appropriate behavior. We have a diversity pride club that is inundated with a mascot that is anti-diversity. I will continue to speak against this mascot, and I encourage, as we move forward with this district, to start the conversation instead of shutting down the conversation. Thank you.
I came all the way from Percy tonight to address this very issue. It's 2017. We've had a hell of a year in America. Hell of a year. And race has played a big part of it. And I'm not going to read from what I wrote, but I can tell you that this weekend, May 20th, 2017, in Quarriesville, Pennsylvania, the Ku Klux Klan is going to burn a cross. Last weekend in Charlottesville, a group of white supremacists marched at night through the streets with torches, reminiscent of a Nazi march in Germany. We have people coming and begging you to open your minds. I played football for the Lenape Valley Indians, and I loved it. I thought nothing of it. Education, learning about culture, diversity, is what changed me internally and changed my perspective. And you're a board of educators and in charge of educating youth. I'm sorry that I had to come all the way down here because it's a passion of mine. Racial equality is a passion of mine, and we have to accept that we committed a genocide when we entered this land 500 years ago. And me being here tonight tells me that that genocide is still going on today. That's all I have to say. I have to go home because I have to be in work in the morning, but thank you for listening.
Steve Rodas. I want to thank Mike for his recognition of the Constitution and the rights thereunder. I would like to know how come 7.16 was not on the agenda, nor I couldn't find it on the board documents. So I really would like an explanation.
I'll give you that. That was just a today ad, a conversation in the executive session, just recently decision by the Commonwealth. We had to act within 10 days. This is our only meeting. It's on board docs now. We put it on after the executive session, but that's the reason we read it out loud, to make sure that you were cognizant of what we were
Is there
acting
going to be
on.
discussion about this at all? I mean, you put it on there, you approved it. I assume you had to, but nobody knows what's in it.
In board comment, we can address some of that, Steve.
Okay, that's fine. Now, so finally, we in the public that comes here, we pay attention, close attention to what the board says, and I really think that this issue of the mascot, you should be, there should be some reciprocity. The board should pay attention to the people that come up to the podium, because they are right. What they've been talking about for years has gone to the winds and never been heard again. And there's some very great students that went through the district, you know, arguing on behalf of the Playwickian, and parents come here. I really think it's time for them to be listened to. Thank you.
Are you coming up? Okay.
Hi, how you guys doing? My name's Taylor Quinn. Technically, I'm a resident of Yardley, Pennsylvania. I know you guys have rivalry or whatever, but I didn't grow up here, which is interesting. That was brought up, the element of land ownership coming from a board of predominantly white or white passing males. Which is another thing that was brought up, was privilege, the privilege of parking, the privilege of existing in a certain place. And confronting white privilege is very difficult. I myself am a white woman with Lenape ancestry, and seeing a mascot, a person is no longer a person. A person becomes a caricature. And the history, the beautiful cultural history that is so long been forced underground, forcibly removed through literal violence and cultural assimilation in this area here. This is where America started, and it still continues to this day. I find it personally very offensive. I find it racist, and I believe that I'm not the first voice to say that, and I'm just part of the collection of voices that are coming out and speaking out against this. And really, it's not that difficult to change a mascot. It is about pride, and this is not a prideful thing. Racism, genocide, it's not something to be proud of. And I understand, oh, it's a history, it's a tradition, but you can change. You have the power to change the future. You have the power to change the minds of the children that are coming into your halls to learn, to be educated. You're shapers. I respect educators so much. I myself have participated in educational things. I couldn't possibly be a teacher. I love it. I love that you guys are here right now and that you care so much about the students that are in this area, in the halls. And you should also respect the students that were forced into state schools, the tribal children that were forced out of their cultural practices and traditions, who are beaten and abused, and who lie in mass graves and in cemeteries at these schools. Carlisle Indian School, that's a good one. Look that up. It's not good, but look it up. I'm gonna give you guys some homework. The walking treaty, I don't remember what year it is, but it happened right over at the Wrightstown Meeting House. It is when the sons of William Penn stole land from Lenape. And that's my time. And you definitely won't be hearing the last of me, but I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you for being here. Peace. Much love.
Oh, I don't see anybody else approaching the podium. At this time, we're going to move to board comment.
I want to congratulate all our teachers that received awards tonight. They did a great, fantastic job. Only two of them. It's just fantastic to hear from them. Basically, Mr. Rodas, the motion that you spoke of was a legal obligation of the district. Court made an award. District had an obligation to confirm that award. On the advice of counsel, we proceeded with such a motion. Particular motion had time limitations on it. We did, as Mr. Jones explained, and that's why it was acted on at the last minute. My personal feelings haven't changed on the issue. I feel Neshaminy offers the best education anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania. I do not feel the entity that wants to come in here can do any better to address the students' needs, 100% of the students' needs. To think that such an implementation is not going to put serious strain on the district's resources, I think is a misnomer. Studies have shown for every dollar expensed in tuition, the district probably only recoups 20 to 25 cents in savings. That money has to come from somewhere. As we talked about earlier, we had $4.5 million in contractual increases alone this year that the administration had contend with. Going into future years, Ps are still rising. It's going to be difficult for this district moving forward to make sure we've made the progress, continue to make the progress that we've made over the last couple years. We've invested a tremendous amount of money in curriculum and instruction, new technologies, besides revamping our facilities, and the taxpayers can only afford so much. Why a lot of people make the choice argument, it's if I had a choice of apples and apples is one thing. The state puts us in a predicament of choices between apples and oranges. You know, when Mr. Shubin was on this board, he used to talk all the time about all the legacy costs that the district must maintain, that charter school entities don't have to maintain. Well, that isn't going away, and this legislation that we spoke about tonight, in some ways, is going to make it worse if it continues to go through. But we will abide by the law and the decisions that have been given to us. The entity that's going to come in is going to have to abide by them as well. I'm just fearful of the limitations, additional limitations that are going to be placed upon us, moving forward, as far as that goes. Other than that, Mr. Congdon in his presidency is very kind to allow people that aren't taxpayers here to speak at the podium. That's his obligation as the president. The reason I objected is I still would have let you speak, but I wanted to get on with board business and let you have your speaking time at where you should be, which is at this period that just passed. Mrs. Drake, I appreciate your remarks, but I have to take chance with you when you talk about the Play-Wickian students and them fostering the discussion. The reason the board acted is because they shut the discussion down. Now, my son can't come here and speak for himself anymore, but I'll speak for him. When they denied him the right to voice his opinion, just like the gentleman who came up and spoke about what reason he doesn't like the Ku Klux Klan, I don't like him either. But in a free society, if you want to be able to express what you believe in, unfortunately, we have to allow people that you may feel isn't as tasteful express their views too. And that's why the Supreme Court of the United States, talking about the Constitution, allows, unfortunately, these hate groups to be able to protest and march. That's the price of a free society. What the students in the Play-Wickian did was decided was their opinion was going to carry for all the students in the school. And the school board objected to that. And the law and code of Pennsylvania backed us up. And that's why it was acted the way it was. And that's why the rules were implemented the way they were implemented. Every student in this school district has a right to express their opinion as long as they're doing it in a lawful manner. And Neshaminy does not use derogatory terms. Neshaminy does not use racist terms. Whoever, I'm speaking now, man. This is board comment. This is board comment. You had your time to comment. This is board comment. Neshaminy does not use racist terms. If that's your opinion, that's fine. Our opinion is otherwise. Who created the police on words? I don't know of an entity anywhere where someone has appointed somebody to decide what words are considered what and what words are considered other. That's a societal issue that society will decide. I respect your right to come up here and speak your free mind and say what you want to say. I'm proud to be part of Neshaminy. I'm proud to be part of its history, and we conduct ourselves in a very moral way, which all students are included, and we offer students the best path and a good path to be productive members of society. And I'm glad to be part of it and glad to support it. Thank you.
Please, no one commented during your speech. Please refrain from commenting when other people are speaking. Please. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say? Without,
I would like to agree, but respectfully disagree with you, Mr. Peritano, in reference to charter schools, not the cyber schools. I definitely have an issue with that as far as the money they drain. However, we went through 5 years of impasse here. You do not find impasses at a charter school, period. Okay. They don't have the burden of the contracts that lay down a lot of money out of our budget. So, but the bottom line to it is they could turn a corner very quickly if they need to, and that's their option to be able to do that. So, well, we're getting there. But the 5-year impasse is something I think what shook this thing out of the tree and everybody's going to have to live with it. It's just the way it is. Taxpayers are going to have to accept it. That's just the way it is. I always supported charter schools, and that's a public known fact. And why we wasted more money, even keep fighting this to the court level we had it at, is beyond me. But if they are so bad, and you can make bad decisions for yourselves, you sit on that one. But if you don't let these people make decisions as taxpayers, they could always bring them back to the greatest Neshaminy school district if they feel it is better. And that's why options are better. That's what America's built on. That's the way I look at it. And if there's an issue behind having a non-union teacher and a union teacher, a motivated teacher is a motivated teacher. They'll be the best instructor they could possibly be. And that's the way I look at that. Now, I have known plenty, and I've got to know plenty more being on the board here of union teachers. They're great people, and you can pick them out way before even meeting them, and you're hearing their names and what they're doing and things like that. They're motivators. They stimulate the minds of the kids. So, in my experience, is, understanding what these charter schools are doing, this is not the worst charter school coming in. They have rules and regulations and laws they have to abide by. But it's going to be the decision of the parents that send them there. They don't like it, and they're coming from Neshaminy, they're coming back to Neshaminy. I know that's a financial burden. However, if they're staying there, we should start looking at our CBAs, because that's the monster that brought this out. And they can live on that. That's a 5-year impasse that sucked millions of dollars out of our budget.
Mike,
each year.
I'm not debating that at all, and some of that, there is some compromise in that area. The situation is all indications is if this occurs, there is going to be a drastic difference between how much is spent and how much can be saved to keep our programs going. That's the argument that I say. I'm sure we'll make it work, but I'm afraid that the opportunities that we have gained and the opportunities that we plan to keep gaining are going to be limited substantially by our tax base. We do a lot here for $180 million. We have 8,600 students, 9,000 overall when you include the students who go to charter schools and the students that go to the tech school. And we pay our shares of tech schools. Mr. Rudy reported, we were lucky enough to save some money this year in the tech school. We offer our students a lot. Lower Marion has 200 less students than us, and their budget is $262 million. Now, there's a school district that's normally always in the top 10 in the state. And you can say that maybe money buys you that, okay? But Neshaminy is now might be put in a predicament by which our ability to invest is severely curtailed. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess I understand this is a public forum, and everyone's entitled to their opinions. And I realize that the audiovisual people that are here are important, but I found them slightly disruptive tonight, moving around the room. So for the future, please remember there are taxpayers here, and they're trying to listen. And I think if I felt distracted from them, others may be also. So just be cognizant of that fact for the future, running in and out of the room, running around the room. Just keep that in mind, okay? So that's all I have to say. I heard, and I'm hoping I won't be accused of white privilege by saying that, but it did bother me a little bit tonight, so I'm just being honest. But I also heard what everyone said, too. Thank you.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Well, I'm not even going to guess on that. Mrs. Burns, who was it? Mr. Morris was the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.